What's up, y'all? It's your girl Jay Renee with Prison Ride Radio. I hope that you're doing well. This afternoon, we got a brother by the name of Anthony Miller on the phone. He wants to talk to us about wrongful convictions, bringing light to them and telling us his own story. He also has a documentary that is going on, and he's going to tell us more about that as well. So we're going to jump right into it. Hello?
Hey, how you doing, Jay Renee? Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. Appreciate you for being here 100%. So we're going to jump right into it, okay?
Okay, no problem.
All right. Tell the people a little bit about yourself and where you from.
So, yeah, my name is Anthony Miller, and, I'm from Rochester, New York, upstate New York. In 2013, when I was 20 years old, I was wrongfully arrested and, ultimately wrongfully convicted for an armed robbery. So, just to skip over kind of to the, end result, eventually ended up doing 6.5 years in, state prisons in New York. So I'm just at a moment right now, I'm just trying to, shed light.
All right. So definitely appreciate you being able to take the time just to help shed some light on this stuff. So I know that you have your own story, and I'd like to give you an opportunity to, talk to us about what happened with you when it goes with wrongful convictions and things like that.
Oh, yeah, my wrongful conviction, it's kind of unique in its, certain ways because, a lot of times with wrongful convictions, it don't be exposed until, somebody is decades, into a prison sentence or, period like that. They say sometimes justice, is served, is not too old, whatever saying they got for it. But, you got people that done spent 20, 30, 40, 50 years that done been executed, during this battle. And, in my situation, I did 6.5. And, I say it, a day in jail innocent, that's one day too many. But, I always, had that in my mind also that some people, had to put a lot of time in before, justice was served. So, I was fortunate, during the times we have now is, criminal justice reform. So it was, a few avenues I went, and it was a few attorneys that was willing to help and, hear my story. So it was some assistance I got to, get to where I got, which was my exoneration.
Right. So if you can, take us back to that day where everything kicked off. What was you doing? How was you apprehended? How did this happen,
Yeah, I remember that day vividly. The day, it sticks out in my mind because it's really a, one of a kind day. And I never even really shared it with too many people, the exact, the walkthrough of the day. And, I feel right now I definitely want to share it for the listeners, how that day turned out because it's a, it's, my faith, is tied into the story as long as with, what happened to me. So, to take everybody back to that date, it was September 25th, 2013, 20 years old. And I remember waking up that day, I had a job interview that morning. I was a regular, 20-year-old black man, staying at home with my parents, still trying to get it together, figure out what I'm trying to do. So, that morning started out, going to a job interview. But, when I got out of bed that day, it just was kind of heavy in my heart where I knew, I need to make a, transition. I really, need to change things around. And it wasn't on an aspect I was doing, illegal things or, things of that nature, but, just life in general, it's time for a change. So, I got on my knees, and it's the first time I ever did this. I pray a lot. I prayed a lot of times, but for that one day, that first time ever, I got out of bed and got on my knees and prayed. And it's what I asked for. I asked God, don't give me nothing I can't handle, And, I just thanked him and, got off my knees, and that's how the day started. So, fast forward, go to the job interview, went very well. Then, later that day, closer to the incident, I picked my little sisters up off the school bus.
Okay.
So I go back home. My family, everybody is home. My mother home cooking. She's in the kitchen. My brother was upstairs. Little sister, they're playing. They're doing something. I forgot exactly what they was doing. Mm-hmm. So I get a phone call from a friend saying, another friend of ours just got jumped, and he didn't have too much information about it because he was currently at work. So,
okay.
At that time, we young men, looking at our environment, what's normally going to happen when a friend of yours get jumped, you know what I mean? 19, 20-year-olds, you're
going to go see about your friend. You're like,
yeah,
what's going on with that?
Friend,
right.
You know what I mean? You're going to spring into action, like, right. What's going on? So, acting how I feel, any, black man come from where I come from and, how I am, I acted upon it. So, fast forward, I go over there, to the area where it happened, at Zach Street, where my friend live at. And, asking, but it was only a few people outside because I arrived probably a couple hours after the incident.
Okay.
So, it's only me and another guy. We're outside discussing the event. And no more than 20 minutes pass by and the police pull up. And I could tell immediately by how we got out the car, like, oh, this kind of urgent because it wasn't, no conversation immediately.
Right.
Put your hands up, don't move. And, he started frisking us. Then no longer than 10 seconds after that, it's cops speeding, sirens going, and, it ended up being at least 13 cop cars on the street. So at that time, I'm like, somebody either got shot or they think we did something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pretty crazy at this point. So, but this is the thing. When they first, put us in the vehicles, they asked us, oh, what was going on earlier? What happened with the incident earlier? So, at the time, I'm kind of rubbing it off like, oh, okay, they're coming this hard because they got reports.
Right.
Somebody got jumped earlier. It was a report guns was seen. So I'm thinking it's connected to that.
Right.
But, 10 more minutes go by. He say, matter of fact, y'all kind of match the description of an armed robbery that just took place in the area. So once again, I'm kind of not thinking nothing of it because, I didn't do nothing. I'm over there for a totally, unrelated situation.
Right.
So I feel I had nothing to worry about. So, they're questioning us, getting our information, IDs, whatever. So fast forward, they take us to the show-up scene. And the show-up is, it's an identification procedure, which, is basically illegal, but they allow them to get away with it based on resources and if a lineup is not available. Because a lineup is the most fair identification procedure, you could do when you're dealing with eyewitnesses.
Okay.
With the show-up procedure, you're literally bringing, a victim, one single person who kind of match a description. And 9 out of 10 times, you're going to have that feeling. And sorry to say, but when we're dealing with, people of other races, more likely or not, they're going to say, oh, it was him because, a lot of the times we all look the same.
Right. I was just talking to somebody about that. It's the actual name for it.
Yeah, it's cross-racial identification.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually, it's a scientific fact. It ain't no harsh truth about it because, even as a black man, I could say sometimes when I see a lot of white men out here, I'll be thinking, damn, is that the CO that was in this prison with me? Is that the CO? Because they kind of look like each other. That's just an honest observation. So, that's one thing that was a part of the case that, was eventually even ruled against, in the appellate court. So, they brought me for a show-up and, it happened how it's really supposed to happen with show-up because that's how a lot of wrongful convictions take place is with a show-up identification. So he said it, oh, that's the guy that robbed me. And he changed clothes, but he got him the same sneakers, the same boots. And wouldn't you believe the same boots is a pair of 10 constructs?
Oh, okay. That's something. For those that don't know, Timberland shoes, the type that he's talking about, can be present in the mass population depending where it is. In Rochester, it's cold up there. I can only imagine a lot of people have these boots. Because in my own, where I grew up, in places that I've been, we had them in abundance.
Exactly. So that was one of his key, identification points when when they arrested me was, a pair of Timberland boots. It wasn't, he didn't give a height description. It was a simple, a black teenager, and when it came to identify me, I know it's him because he got the same boots on. So, like, once again, this is a fall night. This is September 25th, at 8 p.m. So that wouldn't have been odd at all for, half of the city, half of the young black men in the city to be walking around with 10 Timberlands. So, like I said, that was the main thing. So, they arrest me. 5 days later at grand jury, even more come out as far as, what took place. Like, I wasn't the only one identified, because I had an alibi witness, someone who was present with me when I was stopped for this crime. And of course, this person this is my alibi. I was with him the whole time. So they also, stated that he was identified. But truth is he wasn't. So 5 days later at the grand jury, they asked the victim, to go back to the identification and what he remembered. He said he remembered that the two people he identified being the same height, but the guy, the shorter guy, well, not the shorter guy, but the first guy was probably 50 pounds lighter. Okay. To let everybody know, the other person he identified is 6'4", 6'5". Okay. 6'4" at least. I'm 5'5".
Okay, that's a drastic difference.
So this was known like 5 days after my arrest. But once again, that was ignored. That was something that was ignored, and honestly, the jury never even heard that fact. That fact never was even presented to the appellate court because it was never stated on the record about that height discrepancy. So that's just something, a crazy fact about my case that a court never even ruled on. The jury never heard that fact. And, somehow these attorneys that let this fact slide down, tracks like that, nobody was punished. It's, to them in the legal world, it's what they say. It's part of his trap, his deal. As far as his plan for the trial, he could do that. So that's just common sense that, you got the wrong guy at some point.
Right.
So, like I said, we fast forward, we go to trial. There's no evidence. The only evidence exists is, somebody else was in possession of the stolen property because the guy had an iPhone that was robbed. So, of course, they did a track on an iPhone 2 days after the crime, and it led to someone else because at the time I was incarcerated in the county jail. So they ended up on a full pursuit, of the guy in possession of his phone. Nobody was ever found. Nobody was ever caught. So, but the key fact about that is, I was in jail at the time, so it couldn't have been me. But even just playing devil advocate, if they want to say, okay, you got rid of the stolen, property after the crime, somebody else had it, they ran. If that's the case, like, if you really want people to believe that, then why would you wait a year to turn that over to the defense? Or even a prosecutor, because even a prosecutor claimed that the cop that was in charge of that investigation didn't tell him. So now it's a, blame game on, it's his fault, and no, it's his fault. So, key things like that, it came out. As far as, the phone evidence, a K9 track was done that led 4 blocks away from where I was stopped at. That was ignored. The main cop of my case, he got a notorious history, misconduct.
What's his name?
Investigator Nolan Wenger.
Okay.
And, even to this day, it's going around the city that, he was under a federal investigation, that the DOJ was investigating him. And just giving people an alarming fact about that is he passed away in 2017 under, suspicious circumstances.
Right. Whoa.
Where, it's just suspicious circumstances. I'm not going to say how he died.
Right. It's just suspicious. Right.
When we just going to say he was a 31-year-old, healthy, male cop who just died in his home at that age under suspicious circumstances. The police department, it was a news article produce after it that said, it was an investigation that was going to take place, and they was going to tell the public what happened. Mm-hmm. This was in 2017. Do you think they ever did that? So it's just, it's a lot with that officer. And 4 months after his death, the victim of my case, he died of an overdose.
Wow.
So it's just like every character in this case is, so flawed. Uh-huh. At the end of the day, and like a lot of these things, they don't come out, during the court process.
Right.
They don't come out until you're convicted, and you got to do all these things on your own. You got to, request records, and when you're doing these things on your own, these attorneys and these courts, these clerks, they're not so they don't cooperate with you.
Okay.
So, it's a lot of games when you're fighting, while you're, incarcerated within the system that, movies and documentaries, they don't tell about is that, the games, these people play when, you're fighting for your life and you're trying to get critical documents that could prove your innocence. And, so that's a huge hurdle, I want to highlight too, because a lot of things I found out, there's no way in hell I should have been finding out 5 years after my conviction.
Right.
7 years after my conviction.
So it's it's kind of like a system of corruption, depending on who you're dealing with. Yeah.
Not literally, and I say, it depends on where you at, because like I said, we got to remember I'm upstate New York. I done talked to so many, dudes from the city, law library, discussing my case. And they would say, dude, even if you was guilty of this crime, you wouldn't have got sentenced to 10 years if you was in the city. They'd have gave you 6-7 years and called it a day. So it's just even the sentencing and, even when you're a guilty party, up here, it's unfair. So imagine how it is, when you're innocent. When you actually got people that's actively trying to suppress the truth and, protect these certain people that's part of, the conspiracy. So, it's a lot.
Yeah, that was a lot, bro. I know at 20 years old, that had to really have your head spinning.
Oh, yeah. I definitely did.
Be convicted of that. So when they found you guilty, well, let me back up. Do you feel like your lawyers did everything that they could do in this case?
Nah, not at all.
Were they public defenders?
Yeah, no, I had a public defender.
Okay.
And let me harp on that for a little while, because that's the thing about it. Like, my case, it was so weak. Well, I'm saying in my eyes, it was so weak. And, 7-8 years after the fact, appellate court unanimously felt the same way I felt. So that's why we kind of talk about how it takes so long for the truth to come out, and whatnot. So, yeah, but the attorney, it's no way you can't explain his conduct as not being deliberate. There's no way you could look at it as being an overworked public defender, being an underfunded public defender. No, that's not what played into my conviction. Complete ignorance played into my conviction, and complete, corruption played in my conviction. Because it's things I could tell you that happened during my case that the most, honest, person to the law going to say, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
He did things out of his, ordinary, book to convict me.
Right. So what are some things, Laura? Give us one thing that you know about.
Just even one. So let's just the jury. So during the trial, we're about 80% way through trial, and the only witness remaining is the lead investigator on my case. Okay. And we even knew before trial that testimony was going to go in the defense favor. It's nothing that, investigator could have said to make me look guilty. If anything, it was going to expose the investigation even further. So during the break at trial, I get a call, by my lawyer saying, we've been summoned to come back to the courtroom. He thinks something happened. He's not sure what's going on. I don't know why, but in my crazy world, I'm just thinking, damn, maybe the DA about to just drop this, you know, they coming to their senses, it's over now.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we go in there, you know, it's a white lady on the stand, and I noticed her from being on the jury. So, you know, now I'm confused, like, why she understand what's going on?
Right.
So the judge said, now you can talk. And she said during our break, I overheard another juror on the phone talking about the case. And just to give you perspective on who this juror was, it was a probably 60-year-old, you know, Caucasian male. Mm-hmm. You know, he was in the Army previously. You know, he came in jury selection with an American flag bandana. I could be honest, you can call me prejudiced, whatever you want to call me, but I did not want this man on my jury.
Right.
But the DA wanted him. So, you know, that's how it goes. The DA got him on the jury. So she's speaking of him. She said, I believe he was on the phone with his wife. Okay. And he told her that the DA keeps saying the same thing over and over. He's not proving nothing. Like, this case doesn't make sense, and he know that area very well, and it don't sound right. Wow. So, fast forward, the judge say, okay, we got to interview all the other jurors and see if, you know, they heard these comments to make sure there's no tampering going on. And we're going to ask him, did he say it? Right. So they asked everybody. Nobody heard it. Then they finally get down to him. He admits, I was on the phone with my wife, but I didn't say nothing like that. He denied it. Okay. So from that point, the judge gave a decision. He asked the DA, do you want to get rid of this juror? The DA said, I don't think I got any fighting because I can't say nothing. He go to my lawyer. Right. What do you want to do? We want to get rid of him, Judge.
Like he ain't even think of it. Right. Like he ain't even think.
Wait, what are you doing? Yeah, right. I'm like, what are you doing? Why would we want to get rid of him? Off of what we just heard, him saying that the state is not meeting their burden of proof. Why would we want to get rid of him? Especially a juror that we really didn't even think was in our favor. Right. So we're at least, we're going to be good with a hung jury. At least we're going to have a holdout. Right. So he tell me, well, technically he's not supposed to be talking about the case. What? Yeah. I'm fighting for my life. This is innocence. This ain't a client you kind of think is guilty and you say whatever happens, happens. You know I'm innocent. You know they're framing me. So for you to make a move like that as if you're trying to be holier than thou and you'll be breaking some type of rule if you allow him to stay. But just, put the people in perspective even with that decision. That whole exchange was illegal. Because after a jury is sworn in, the only person that got determination of if a juror can go or stay is the judge. Gotcha. That's the reason why the DA said this is out of my hands, because he knew if he said, yeah, he got to go, I'd have been coming back on a reversal later on. So he left it alone. Right. So my lawyer was the one to fall on the sword. Okay, he's gone. Like, why would we do that? We're 80% of the way through trial, and it's only going to get better for us out here. Why? Yeah, it don't make any sense. It don't make any sense in that regard. I caught him having lunch with the district attorney during my trial. I'm sure that was jolting. I'm sure that was very jolting to see that. Yeah. Wow. So let's talk about once, the gravel was banged and you were actually convicted. I can only imagine the thoughts that was going through your head. But what I want to ask is, I'm sure you knew immediately that you was going to fight it, but was there like a moment of disbelief? Man, when they said guilty, I knew they was going to say guilty. Person in the situation would tell you. All you got to do is look at the jurors' faces when they walking in. That's all you got to know. I looked around, turned around to my family. As soon as I seen the first three jurors coming in with their head down, and I knew right there, I'm like, damn, they guilty. Right. Guilty. I turned around, told her I was going to be guilty. I think my mom, she's like, don't say that. I said, I love y'all. That's what it's going to be. Like, I said, I'm good. Don't worry about me. It was what it was. And the crazy thing I tell people is, it was a crazy feeling when they said guilty. It wasn't a devastating feeling. It was almost relief, as in a sense of, I know what it is and I know what I got to do now. Okay. Cause I was out on bail during the situation, and when you got a case like that over your head, this is first degree armed robbery, and I knew I was fighting it. I knew it wasn't no plea deal I was going to take. It wasn't I was fighting for my truth. So I knew if it ended bad, it was going to end bad.
Right.
So that was that wasn't good mentally, fighting that for that year and a half in the streets. That wasn't a peaceful, time out on bail. That wasn't cool. That wasn't, my nights ended on Fridays. I'd be out having a good time, but it's always in the back of my mind, like, damn, I might got to go to prison for something I ain't do. So that's something I was living with. So when they finally said guilty, it was almost like weight off my shoulders. That's why I say that. Like, now I know what I got to do.
I understand that. So speaking of what you had to do, what was the first steps when it came to you getting up out of there? Like, how did you do that? Did you go through the appeal process? Did you reach out to the Innocent Project? Like, what got that ball rolling?
I did everything. Like, I did everything you could do, as a innocent person. So, like, immediately all you can do is, file for the appeal. And if your family don't got no appeal, money, and remind you, appeal money, that's different from when you still fighting your case.
Right.
Because that's another thing I want to shed light on too is, these attorneys, like, that it's a lot of advantage being taken on the appeal stage after people is being convicted because, that's their reason to charge people more. Because that's when you really fighting for your life, and that's when, your loved ones is really feeling it and seeing that, oh, it's real. It got real. And that's their reason to, to charge a case that normally would be $10,000 to, $25,000 now. Because he been convicted and, I feel it's personally like, if y'all want him back that bad, you would pay whatever.
Yeah, that's messed up.
It ain't no other way you could convince me because it's not no more paperwork. It's not no appearances you're making. So what is this reason you're, doubling, tripling the price No, you're doing that because it's desperation you're feeding off of.
That's pretty sick.
So, that's something, my family, they really couldn't afford no appeal lawyer. So I had to, wait for the, the system to give me a lawyer. So, that took about a year and a half, just to get an attorney to speak on my case. So during that time of conviction and, getting an attorney, all that time was in the law library and, getting help and discussing my case with, trusted individuals in the law library who knew about the law.
Okay. All right. So you said that you did 6.5 years?
Mm.
All right. So when did it start to look up to where you was like, okay, I think that I'm really going to get my freedom for fighting for it?
Oh, that's a good one. I would say probably in year, like, I say year 4.5. Yeah, okay. about that year when I was about 4 and 5 and whatever. Because that's when they opened my case again. The district attorney office, they opened my case, the conviction integrity unit.
Okay.
So that told me alone because, I'm in prison at the time. And, when that news came out that a conviction integrity unit was open, I was ahead of people with that because 3 months before they made the announcement, I wrote our district attorney in my county.
Okay.
A personal letter, first class letter, asking, begging, pleading, open my case. Can you please open my case?
Right.
Because, I'm seeing all these conviction integrity units open up all over from, Brooklyn, all these, places. And, we don't got one. So I wrote that letter to the district attorney and I wrote that letter to my appeal attorney at the time, asking her to ask for information. There was no response. My appeal lawyer said, we don't got one. I swear, 3 months later, she wrote me again. Mr. Miller, I'm glad to announce that they just announced that they opened one. So
wow.
I thought that's my calling card. So with that news, I'm the type of person, I like sharing stuff like that.
Right.
Know that it's a possibility, it could be an avenue for innocent individuals to, get out. So with that, I shared it with a few people I knew who had similar situations. And it was about 4 or 5 of us. Everybody else got denied but me.
Wow.
Like everybody else, like they had more serious charges, even more flagrant stuff done in their case. So when everybody else was denied but me, that showed me right there, I got something. Like, so right there, that's what really gave me hope. I said, I know I'm not going. I kind of knew from the beginning I was going to get out. I just didn't know when. Mm-hmm. But that was the moment I knew I had him, and I knew I had something to go with. And after that, it was really like I was motivated before, but after that really, motivated me 1,000 times more.
Right. So when were you exonerated?
In 2021, I believe.
Okay. Well, congratulations. Congratulations and welcome home.
I appreciate that.
There's a lot of brothers and sisters that's still fighting on that road. There's brothers and sisters that's made it to the end of that. You know what I mean? So, thoughts and prayer and love is with all of y'all, collectively and individually. So I want to ask you, bro, like, what you got going on now? Like, what you been doing with your freedom?
Right now, at the moment, I'm really trying to work on, a documentary, just pointing out what happened in my case, and in a way where we can educate, because I don't want it to be a hate speech documentary. You know what I mean? Of course, I'm a human. I got feelings about what happened to me.
Of course.
But I wanted to be, educational, breaking down, the system at best, because I was really failed at every point of the system, Mm-hmm. Certain people, they have like, oh, the police did them wrong, but, the prosecutor was straight, but he really ain't know the police planted that. But no, that's not the case here. Right. Everybody from the public defender to the judge to the DA, everybody, literally played their role in this. So, I feel I'd be going against, my calling and everything I fought for, to let it go and, not, portray my story and present it to the people and who I really do it for. Right. I don't speak, to the newspapers or, did those things for, people out here. I really do that hoping somebody who's in the inside still fighting, come across that article, come across that hope, because that's what motivated me, seeing other stories, seeing other people, fighting and, knowing it was possible. So that's, one thing, it's awareness, because if they don't know, nobody going to do nothing about it.
Yeah, you absolutely right. And I also think, along with that, knowing that these things happen and putting it in the atmosphere that it happens keeps an account of these things that happen during our lifetime, because there's a lot of people that believe that this is it's unfathomable to them that this actually could happen. Right. So to put out stories of it, yes, it did happen, and I'm luckily one of the success stories, which proves, without a shadow of a doubt, that there was, a miscarriage of justice here. It assists in those that don't understand or believe that this can happen, that, it really does,
No, it does.
So
it does.
We definitely appreciate you for that, too. And changing some minds, because that's what your story does. It's going to change some minds about some things, get some people thinking and shifting their minds. I don't want to keep you too much longer. We already about 33 minutes in, but I would like for you to give us some gems. You got any gems that you want to drop on the people?
Yeah, like I said, just the people that's involved, in this type of work, with, fighting for the innocent. Like, we just need, more tenacity, man. We just, need more people that's, willing to take it there for these truths without, hurting feelings. Because it's innocent shouldn't be political. Nothing about that should be, oh, we just gonna go, normally, as a normal day of business. When you dealing with somebody innocent, even when it comes to compensation, it shouldn't be you come out here and you still got to fight in civil court for money that they know they owe you because you, like, why isn't it a fund set up for, people that wrongfully, get on their feet while they come out and, so until we write on all funds and, helping the people, we still, I ain't gonna say we got a long way to go, but, we do got a long way to go because till everybody, innocent is free, the fight ain't over.